Hey everyone, welcome back to Coach Klepto, where we steal plays from other coaches because everything is free use when it comes to basketball plays, at least. So today we're going to be looking at a play from the New York Knicks that they used in their series against the Indiana Pacers these most recent playoffs, 2024, 2025. Good play out of Coach Thibodeau's playbook. I'm not sure why he was fired. This is a play that I saw New York go to a lot, I feel like, or plays very similar to this. So, like a lot of the plays that I like to look at on my channel, I've picked another play where there's really three key players, whereas the other two on the court are decoys. Josh Hart over here, sitting in the corner, is a decoy. And then I don't know who's sitting in this corner over here. I assume it's OG Anunoby, knowing the way Thibodeau plays his rotations. But two decoys in the corner off rip. So Cat, Carl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, and Mikal Bridges are the three players that are running this play, that this play is being run through. So I'm going to go through the play full speed, just going to let you see how it works. And then we'll go back through it, bit of a slower pace. I'll give my inputs, things that I would change. And before we go any further, I call this play Manhattan in honor of New York. So Mikal Bridges has brought the ball up before, passes it to Cat, then get it to Jalen Brunson, and boom, mid-range jumper. Not the ideal way that this play would unfold, in my opinion, but I think there's a great structure here that would enable Jalen Brunson or even someone else to get a really easy shot off here. I would trust Jalen Brunson with that mid-range shot. I trust a few other players with that shot. Kevin Durant, DeMar DeRozan, very good in the mid-range. If you have a player that shoots well in the mid-range, maybe you could execute this play exactly like that. But that's not our goal here. So let's go back and let's go a bit at a slower pace and talk things through. We'll pause and all that sort of thing. So again, Mikal Bridges has brought the ball up the floor. This is not your typical New York possession because you would typically see Jalen Brunson bring the ball up the floor. He's their main ball handler. You run the offense through him, and this play is run through him, but he doesn't start with the ball. So that's a very interesting thing to look at to begin with. Second, you have your big man up top. You have Jalen Brunson pretty close to him. You have Andrew Nemhard kind of hounding Jalen Brunson. And that's the most important thing here. You have these three players. Basically, you have two at the top of the key and then one at the logo, all in this kind of bunched area. And your main ball handler, your main scorer is getting hounded by the defense. This is the opportune time to implement this play when the defense is matched up well with your best player and he's not getting loose and you need him to score. So, what the New York Knicks do here is they use Mikal Bridges to bring the ball up the floor, and they're not going to pass it to Jalen Brunson immediately because Andrew Nemhard is basically saying, deny, deny, deny. I'm not letting Jalen Brunson get the ball. But that's okay because we don't need him to get the ball immediately. So Mikal Bridges, instead of passing to Jalen, passes it to Cat up top. His defender, Miles Turner, of course, isn't defend, defend, defend because a pass over top to Carl Anthony Towns with a wide open lane is not something that you want to give up. Cat will yam it. Carl Anthony Towns will show Miles Turner what yam time is really all about. So immediately after Mikal Bridges gives Cat the ball, he immediately goes off to set a screen for Jalen. After he sets the screen for Jalen, with that screen, Jalen goes up, gets the ball, and then he gets a second screen from Cat. Not a super hard screen, but to give Jalen Brunson a little bit of extra space. Andrew Nemhard does a pretty good job of getting over the first screen. He's still a little bit behind him. That's how Jalen gets the ball. But then a second screen is detrimental because now Jalen can go straight to the basket or do his thing. Also, Carl Anthony Towns is a pick and pop player. So that creates another problem. So Jalen, who has lost Andrew Nemhard, now has Miles Turner as his defender. Miles Turner is a great defender, but he's not the best defender against smaller guards. This gives Jalen Brunson a lot of options. He can do what he wants and that sort of thing. So Jalen Brunson does his thing, and he gets a bucket. I like that. Now, my insights and my input from this play is this was not executed the best. If I'm the New York Knicks, we have created a good amount of space for Jalen Brunson to the point where if we go back just a little bit to right about there, Andrew Nemhard has lost Jalen Brunson. That's a decent amount of space in between the two of them. That is not good. Obviously, Andrew Nemhard initially tries to catch up with Jalen because he's the better defender on Jalen Brunson, not Miles Turner. But here's my problem with how this play was executed in this moment. You have three players involved in this play: Jalen Brunson, Cat, and the guy who started with the ball, Mikal Bridges. If I'm Tom Thibodeau, I am hounding Mikal Bridges. I am yelling to him from the sideline, get over here, go this way. Because the fact that Mikal Bridges is over here means that Tyrese Halliburton is still somewhat in play as a defender, which we don't want. We want Tyrese Halliburton farther. We want him away from the play. Now, Pascal Siakam responds pretty well as a defender. He gets in the paint, and this is why Jalen Brunson ends up settling for mid range because Josh Hart can't really shoot, and the odds of Jalen getting a pass over to Josh Hart, over Turner, and over Siakam is kind of low. But odds are, especially with lower level basketball, this player isn't going to be all the way over. He's not going to recognize it like that. Only higher level defenders will be able to recognize what they need to do and help defense in this situation. What I want as Tom Thibodeau is Mikal Bridges over here, so Tyrese Halliburton also moves over here just a little bit. He's right here, kind of at the top of the key, right here at I forget what this spot is called. We want him closer to the elbow because if Tyrese Halliburton is over here, then that opens a great opportunity to play two-man game with Cat. You've already lost Andrew Nimhard, then you force Miles Turner to play in a 2v1 situation, which is optimal. Cat can catch a lob. Jalen Brunson can finish at the rim, but we can't do that here because Mikal Bridges did not shift over. This is how I would run this play a bit differently. This is what I would encourage my players to do. Pretty well executed, aside from what Mikal Bridges does and what Cat does, kind of because of the limitations through Mikal. If Mikal had shifted over, that would give Cat the optionality to also cut to the basket, but if he tries to cut now, odds are Tyrese could really get in the way, and we don't want that. So Cat kind of is stuck in a pick and pop situation, which is what he likes. But as a coach, I would rather him going downhill and have Jalen Brunson and Cat in a 2v1 situation versus Miles Turner. So let's take this to the whiteboard. I'll digest kind of those changes that I would like to make to this play, which I call Manhattan again. And I think it would be easier to look at it that way.
All right, let's go through Manhattan one more time. Before I write anything on the board, I just want to point out that the way that this play was executed was to play to Jalen Brunson's strong suits. He's a left-handed player. He likes to go left. He shoots with his left hand. He's better dribbling with his left hand. And that is why this play flows the way that it does. It's very easy to execute going the other direction, which we'll go through as well. But we'll first go through the way, more or less, that this play was executed by the Knicks in the highlight reel, or at least how I think it could have been executed just a little bit better. So first things first, we have our decoys. Decoy 1 over here, and then decoy 2 over here. As I've said in videos before, we want decoy 1 to be the better shooter. This is because they are going to be closer to where the play is executed, meaning that their defender is more likely to be the help defender in this scenario. And as we saw actually in the play, this was OG Anunoby, and then this was Josh Hart. And nothing against Josh Hart, but OG Anunoby is the better shooter. So their defenders are going to be about right here, something like this, maybe a bit closer to the baskets. Again, that all depends on how their defense is playing exactly. So we want our 5-man. I don't generally use numbers. I don't generally go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But our 5-man, our big man, is going to be right here, a little bit underneath the 3-point line. His defenders are going to be right here. And then we want the ball handler to bring it up from half court. Now, this does not have to be the point guard that we use all the time, because this player over here, who we're going to refer to as G, is going to be our star guard, shooting guard, point guard, whoever. Think of this as a Jalen Brunson, a Donovan Mitchell type player. They are good at creating their own offense. They're good at scoring on all three levels. Generally, we saw Jalen Brunson hit a mid-range rather than a three-pointer layup in this play, in the highlights. But we are expecting this player to be basically our star. Doesn't have to be our star guard, our star forward, just the guy who's good with the basketball, has good handles, can score at the rim, mid-range, can make a good pass in a pick and roll situation, that sort of thing. So we'll go into a little bit more details of who we want each player to be, kind of the ideal scenarios that we want to execute this play. But I will mention one to start. Odds are, as we saw in Manhattan as it was executed by the Knicks, Andrew Nembhard was guarding like his life depended on Jalen Brunson not scoring. He was denying him the ball. He was getting in the passing lane. He was right up in his face. He was being very, very difficult for Jalen. It was not the scenario that you want Jalen Brunson to have the ball in. The ball handler, on the other hand, had Tyrese Halliburton guarding him. I'm not going to say he's a terrible defensive player, but you don't think of him for his defense. You do think of Andrew Nembhard's defense when you think about him. You don't think about that for Tyrese Halliburton. And this is ideal. You want this ball handler, the person that is guarding them, you generally want them to be not necessarily a bad defender, but somebody who isn't heavy on ball pressure type of defender. So Tyrese Halliburton is standing right here. Mikal Bridges brought the ball up. He's the ball handler in this play. And first things first, once Jalen Brunson gets over here, Mikal Bridges passes the ball over top of Halliburton to Cat. Cat comes to the ball a little bit. Of course, his defender is in between him and the basket, as he should be. And he gets the ball kind of at the top of the key. Right after this, though, Mikal Bridges runs over and sets a ball screen for Jalen Brunson, right about there, kind of in line. There's basically a straight line right here. So he sets a screen. Jalen Brunson goes around the screen tight, runs towards Cat, who now has the ball, probably about right here. And Cat, our five-man, also sets a screen. So, as we're going through the highlight reel, we saw Andrew Nembhard. He was fighting to deny Jalen Brunson the ball, and he fought through the first screen. But it was a good screen, so he fell a little bit behind. There was no switch because Andrew Nembhard trusted himself to stay on Jalen Brunson. He wanted to deny him the ball. He did not want him to score. He's the better defender on Jalen Brunson for sure over Tyrese Halliburton. So he's continuing to follow Jalen Brunson throughout this play, even though he's a little bit behind. And after the screen from Cat, that is when things start to open up. Andrew Nembhard, this defender, the guy guarding the star guard, the star player, actually, you know what? Let's not even put a G. Let's put a star right here. I think that's more a better representation. So this defender, he runs through two screens, and it's just too much. Generally speaking, good defenders can get through one screen, but it is very difficult for any defender to get through two well-set screens, and that's what we're looking for. This ball handler, after giving the ball up, sets a screen for the star player. Star player runs to the ball and gets a second screen for the big man. And then, boom, he has the ball, and now he can act. Not only that, but his defender is now quite a bit behind him. This defender is a bit over here now. But the ideal way to execute this play after the 2 screens, once this has all happened, what's ideal is the original ball handler, who's now over here, he should move a little bit further this way, pulling his defender with him. Fortunately, that didn't happen with the Knicks, but it worked out anyways because they scored. But what we want to happen is after setting the screen, we want this player, the original ball handler, to move a little bit further away from the play, draw his defender with him. Because once this defender, who is guarding the star, once he gets hit with the second screen, then we force this defender into a very difficult situation. We are officially in a 2-on-1 situation. Not in a fast break, but it's 2-on-1, which is exactly what we want. Star player and the 5-man versus their 5-man, most likely. We are both running to the basket, the star player and the 5-man. And this star player just has to execute the right play at the right time. He can hit the 5-man for a pass. If this player jumps, he can hit a hezzy dribble and then knock down a mid-range. He can book it past him and score at the rim. It all depends upon what happens. This defender might still come over, in which case the star player now right here will hit the decoy for a wide open 3. It all depends upon how the defense unfolds after this, because this defender, after 2 screens, is struggling to recover. This is why both of these players run to the basket, because if they stay, that gives this defender, the defender who was originally on the star player, a lot more time to react and to do what he needs to do on the defensive end. We don't want this, so we are rolling to the basket, the star and the 5-man. So, just to go over everyone's roles again, we have our star player. They are not starting with the ball, but they are an elite scorer. They can make good decisions. They are great in the pick and roll, which is what we also want out of our 5-man. These are big, but you also want him and the star player to be good in the pick and roll. That is what we want out of this play. Not exactly how it was executed by the Knicks, but this is the ideal way to run this play. We have B, which is our ball handler just for this play. Of course, we want this player to be able to handle the ball. We want them to be able to execute a pass over the top of their defender to the 5-man. Of course, the 5-man, if they move right, then that shouldn't be too much trouble. I guess in a perfect scenario, this defender would be smaller than the person bringing the ball up the floor for us. That might not be the case, but it's not too much to adjust, I would say. And then, of course, as most of the time we do, we have our decoys, decoy 1 and decoy 2. Again, as normal, decoy 1 is the better shooter between the decoys because the ball isn't even coming to this side of the court where the decoy 2 is. So just really quickly, I'm going to also go through how to run this on the right side. We want to play to our strengths. The star player's strength for the Knicks, Jalen Brunson, is going to the left, of course. So we're going to go back through, redraw things just a little bit, just to show you how this would be executed on the right side of the court. Very simple setup, of course. We switch the decoys. We want the better shooter on this side of the ball because that's where the play is going to happen. So we have our star player. He's going to come right over here. The guy bringing the ball up the floor, right about here on this side. And then we have our 5-man here. This defender is hounding the star. This defender's a little bit back. And this guy is between his man and the basket. So, ball handler throws it up top, over top, I should say, to the 5-man. After the pass, ball handler is going to come up here, set a screen. 5-man's probably about right here now. Set a screen for the star player, who's going to come around, tight, straight for the ball. And then handoff. And then the star player moves this way towards the basket. 5-man, of course, follows. This defender likely gets caught up a little bit on the first screen. If it's a really good screen, they don't see it coming, then they might get caught up big time, in which case that would probably force a switch, but we're going to assume that doesn't happen because odds are this is the best defender that they have. But this defender is going to get a little bit behind from the first screen, and then after the second screen, they're just going to be too far behind. As long as your players act quickly, your star moves, and your 5-men both roll to the rim, this defender has to react, and they just have to play in a 2-on-1 situation, which is ideal for us. So that's Manhattan, looking at it from both sides of the basket. We want to play to our star strengths, like I said. If they're right-handed, I would run it this way. If they're left-handed, I'd run it the way that the Knicks ran it. But remember, this is where Mikal Bridges could have done better. What would have been best is if once he was right here, or right here, wherever, it would have been best if he had slid over this way, pulling his defender with him and making it more difficult for that defender to play help defense. So that's Manhattan. Let me know how it goes for you guys. I think this is a great play. If you have a great go-to scorer, he has a great pick and roll game with your big man. Those are, I think, the most important things with this play. You have a star player who's great with a basketball, can dribble, can score at a high level. And then you have a big man who's great at playing in the pick and roll with your star player.